These are my kids. So
all those Star Wars films.
All the Star Wars films.
I know that in looking in the mirror, I have to take responsibility for that. I have to take my own responsibility and not push that responsibility off on everybody else.
Business with large Western companies and brands, but we bring to China a type of ideology.
Have you ever heard the kind of news that makes you pause everything you're doing just to make sure you heard it right? That's exactly the reaction many Star Wars fans had when word broke that Gina Carano scored a major victory in her lawsuit. Some called it a definitive turning point. Others saw it as yet another explosive chapter in the ongoing saga that is Disney and Lucasfilm. But no matter how you look at it, one thing is crystal clear: the Star Wars galaxy might never be the same. If you've been wondering how this monumental shift will impact not just Kathleen Kennedy's future, but the entire direction of Lucasfilm, buckle up. The story behind the scenes is even more gripping than what we see on screen, and it's unfolding faster than anyone expected. Keep watching, because what began as a small dispute has escalated into a full-blown confrontation that's forcing Bob Iger and other Disney executives to reevaluate everything, from upcoming projects to Lucasfilm's leadership. Many fans believe this is the much-needed wake-up call for a franchise that has been struggling to find its footing. Ready for the details? Let's jump right in. When rumors first surfaced about Gina Carano challenging Disney and Lucasfilm, plenty of skeptics brushed it off as an empty threat. After all, big studios often handle lawsuits quietly, and high-profile suits don't always make headlines unless something really dramatic happens. But then, we got wind of Gina Carano's legal team winning a key motion, allowing the case to move forward, and that's when everything changed. This wasn't some minor procedural step. It was reported as a genuine triumph in what many fans see as a fight against corporate overreach.
You know, and my life could have gone bad and south at one point, multiple times. But mixed martial arts is the thing that brought me, instead of going the direction that I saw all of these people going in Las Vegas, mixed martial arts put me on the right path. And I became addicted to that instead of, fishing for 40s. Well, by that time I was 21.
A lot of people felt Carano's situation went beyond just her personal career. It was symbolic of how modern entertainment companies handle creative differences, controversies, and yes, even cancellations that may or may not align with the audience's wishes. For those unfamiliar with her story, Gina Carano was once hailed as a breakout star for her portrayal of Cara Dune in The Mandalorian. She had a devoted fan following, and many predicted she would become a central figure in the Star Wars universe for years to come. Then came the social media controversies, followed by her abrupt dismissal. At first, it seemed like just another instance of an actor losing a role amid public backlash. However, the lawsuit quickly morphed into something bigger, a battleground over freedom of expression and the precarious balance between a studio's public image and the creative liberties of its talent. Disney, often seen as an untouchable empire of family-friendly entertainment, suddenly faced a public relations nightmare. Not only did Carano stand her ground, but she also garnered significant support from fans tired of corporate decisions that, in their view, stifled individual voices. Her legal victory so far suggests that even the mightiest entertainment giants aren't immune to pushback. And for some observers, it's not just about one lawsuit anymore. It's about a broader culture war, with Carano's win serving as an important symbol that the tides may be turning. But that's not the entire story. If you ask old-school Star Wars fans about Kathleen Kennedy's time at Lucasfilm, you're likely to hear a mix of frustration, disappointment, and outright disbelief.
He was like the person that knew me, and I knew him. And we were not perfect individuals, and he wasn't perfect. But he texted me, and he called me Bumblebee, because I'm always bumbling, or I'm always buzzing about. And we lived together for 6 years.
After taking the reins when Disney bought Lucasfilm for a hefty $4 billion, Kennedy had the opportunity of a lifetime: safeguard George Lucas's legacy while ushering Star Wars into a new era. At first, it seemed promising. The hype around The Force Awakens breathed fresh life into the fandom, and box office numbers soared. But as the sequels progressed, cracks began to form. The Last Jedi divided fans to an unprecedented degree. Solo, a Star Wars story, underperformed at the box office, and The Rise of Skywalker left audiences debating plot holes and creative choices rather than celebrating the end of a saga. Beyond the main saga, rumors and reports started emerging about behind-the-scenes turmoil. creative differences, multiple canceled or reworked projects, and a revolving door of directors who either left or were fired before finishing their films. Then came the flurry of announcements for shows like The Acolyte, Andor, and other spin-offs. Fans initially welcomed the idea of a broader Star Wars universe on Disney+, but soon, dissatisfaction grew as the projects seemed to reflect agendas rather than telling universal stories. Episodes struggled to capture the essence that once made Star Wars magical, those timeless themes of heroism, friendship, and the battle between good and evil. Instead, many believed the franchise had become fractured, trying too hard to be trendy or woke at the expense of storytelling. Reports about canceled or indefinitely postponed films also began circulating.
My question, I really can't wait to understand this one thing, is, and you could probably pull up what they said about me, the comment that they said I was denigrating people off of cultural and religious beliefs, and that it was abhorrent. I want to know so badly who okayed that. That had to have been someone at the top that had to have been okayed, because that was so damaging.
1 minute, a movie with Rian Johnson was in development. The next minute, it was shelved. The planned trilogy featuring Daisy Ridley's Rey returning to rebuild the Jedi Order, allegedly scrapped, or at least in a very shaky state. Fans were left with a barrage of conflicting information, each bit of news chipping away at their hope that Star Wars might one day recapture its former glory. And that's only the start of the drama. Bob Iger's return to Disney was supposed to be a stabilizing force. He had guided the company through numerous successes, from acquiring Marvel to capitalizing on Pixar's iconic brand. Many assumed he would step back into the CEO role, wave a magic wand, and fix the slew of problems plaguing the studio. Yet, Star Wars remains a glaring exception. Insiders now whisper about Iger holding what's been called a definitive meeting to rechart the course of Lucasfilm. He's reportedly baffled by the franchise's declining numbers and the online uproar from fans. After all, Star Wars used to be a sure bet. Whenever it premiered something new, millions would line up without question. So, what happened? According to various sources, Iger is discovering the rot goes deeper than a few underwhelming box office returns. There's a morale issue at Lucasfilm, one triggered by leadership's relentless push for projects that fans haven't embraced. Add to that the lawsuit situation with Gina Carano, which has now hit mainstream headlines, turning what should have been an internal HR matter into a very public fiasco. Word on the street is that Iger's meeting isn't just about Star Wars. It's about an entire corporate culture that might need a reset, from how Lucasfilm greenlights new shows to how it handles criticism from within and outside its walls.
Is not designed right now to necessarily develop great leaders or to encourage more people to seek public office. It just is far more difficult. Now, I've never been in it, but from what I observe, it's far more difficult to run for office today than ever before.
Will he demand a leadership change? Some say yes, others aren't so sure. What we do know is that pressure is mounting, especially with Carano's victory spotlighting every crack in Lucasfilm's foundation. But the next twist is even more revealing. Hardcore Star Wars fans have always been vocal, but the backlash over the last few years has reached new heights. Star Wars was once the gold standard for sci-fi fantasy storytelling, uniting generations under its narrative of hope, destiny, and redemption. Now, fans are pleading, just give us Luke Skywalker. That refrain encapsulates more than just a longing for the original trilogy's iconic hero. It speaks to the desire for authenticity, a feeling the franchise has lost. Editorials have popped up across major publications, painting a grim picture of Star Wars' future if drastic changes aren't made. Even casual viewers lament the absence of that old spark, the one that made us believe in a galaxy far, far away. Instead, we get spin-offs that sometimes feel half-baked, overshadowed by behind-the-scenes controversies rather than propelled by imaginative storytelling. Meanwhile, calls for an animated Luke Skywalker show or a standalone series focusing on the formative years of other classic characters keep popping up. Fans see these as potential ways to reignite interest. But does Lucasfilm listen? Based on the rumor mill, not really. Kathleen Kennedy and her circle seem more committed than ever to forging ahead with new characters, fresh timelines, and expansions that leave longtime enthusiasts feeling alienated. Yet the fans aren't backing down.
He wanted to kind of change his life. And so he woke up the next day and went to a gym and started training. And then I went in and watched him like the good girlfriend I was. And then I started fighting 5 months later.
So you were watching, it starts off with your boyfriend.
nervous.
Oh, don't be nervous.
at
After
this.
what you can do, I've seen what you can do.
I would rather get punched in the face right now. This is,
Social media platforms are flooded daily with petitions, theories, and heartfelt critiques. Even the merchandise sales, once a surefire revenue generator, are showing signs of fatigue. If there's one lesson corporate leaders usually understand, it's that declining sales signal waning consumer confidence. Will Disney and Lucasfilm finally realize they can't ignore this dissatisfaction forever? Maybe so, maybe not. But the intensity is rising, and with Carano's triumph, the push for change just gained a powerful new voice. And speaking of voices, let's delve into Gina's perspective. For Gina Carano, this legal struggle isn't just about personal vindication, it's about exposing the broader atmosphere of censorship in Hollywood. Before her departure from The Mandalorian, Carano posted opinions that some deemed too controversial. Whether you agreed with her or not, the abrupt cancellation of her character struck many as heavy-handed. Her supporters argue that the sudden firing was a clear example of agenda-driven decision-making, where studios bow to online outrage instead of handling disagreements privately. Carano's victory in court so far sends a statement. Maybe big studios can't simply muzzle or sideline talent when it suits them. It also encourages other industry players, actors, writers, directors, who feel their creative freedom or personal viewpoints might be under threat. This resonates in what some call the culture war, a battle between traditional storytelling values and modern corporate strategies aiming to satisfy vocal online groups. In such a climate, Carano's resilience symbolizes a refusal to be silenced, and her fight seems far from over.
I know that in looking in the mirror, I have to take responsibility for that. I have to take my own responsibility and not push that responsibility off on everybody else, and make some lifestyle changes. And if I don't, then, you have to deal with those
But you have a lot of people in this country that are living in denial about health in regards to being obese. Like, there's a lot of people that think there's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
If the lawsuit continues to move in her favor, it might force Disney to publicly address how they handle employee disputes, ideological differences, and the delicate balance between brand image and individual expression. Naturally, this has put Kathleen Kennedy and her team in a tough spot. For years, Lucasfilm has maneuvered around controversies, from fan discontent over how certain legacy characters were portrayed to controversies involving cast and crew. But the Carano saga isn't just another behind-the-scenes scuffle. It's a lightning rod for bigger questions about creative integrity, corporate accountability, and what Star Wars represents to the millions who grew up loving it. That tension within Lucasfilm is about to get even more intense. As the public learned more about Gina Carano's legal path, whispers emerged that Kathleen Kennedy might be planning her exit, but not before she lands one last big success. Insiders like Chris Gore have hinted she's determined to leave on a high note, despite the franchise's multiple stumbles. If true, it shows a deep disconnect between personal ambition and fan sentiment. Consider the latest projects, The Acolyte and other series that, at best, have garnered lukewarm interest. Far from revitalizing Star Wars, these shows highlight the ongoing identity crisis. Is it a franchise grounded in timeless heroism, or is it a platform for corporate messaging that often misses the mark? The ratings for these new endeavors have been underwhelming, suggesting the loyal fan base isn't thrilled, while new potential viewers aren't feeling compelled to jump on board.
Cara Dune, her full name is Cara Cynthia Dune, is an ex-rebel shock trooper who fought in the Galactic War. She's lost herself a little bit, so she's traveling from planet to planet, and then we find her on a planet, and it happens to be a planet the Mandalorian's passing through.
Meanwhile, critics like Nerdrotic and The Critical Drinker have become megaphones for fan grievances. Every time a new Star Wars show debuts or fails to deliver on its promise, their voices grow louder, echoing what many fans say privately. This isn't Star Wars anymore. Instead of viewing these critics as valuable feedback, it seems Lucasfilm's leadership dismisses them as troublemakers who don't understand the new direction. Kennedy's rumored push for a second season of The Acolyte, despite its controversial reception, exemplifies the disconnect. Rather than winning fans back, this direction alienates the very people who made Star Wars an enduring phenomenon. Disney's upper management is reportedly aware of this friction, but so far, there's been no firm indication they'll intervene. Could Carano's lawsuit change that? Possibly. Public legal battles have a way of exposing deeper truths about a company's internal culture. But let's zoom out and see where Star Wars might be headed next. Will Disney double down on pushing new characters, new timelines, and new agendas? Or will they pivot back to the core elements that made Star Wars legendary? At its heart, the saga thrived on universal themes: the hero's journey, the redemption arc, and the moral complexity of good versus evil. George Lucas built an expansive universe brimming with lore that resonates across generations. Today, that essence feels diluted. We get plenty of announcements, spin-offs, and hype, but the final product often comes off as confused, pandering, or poorly planned. Some argue that the only way to rescue Star Wars is a complete overhaul of Lucasfilm leadership, including a fresh approach that respects Lucas's original blueprint. Others suggest bridging the gap with more animated series focusing on established characters. Safer bets that could restore fan trust. But there are big question marks. If Carano's lawsuit expands, will it force Disney to settle or openly address the issues that led to her firing?
And my advice to them was to not hear the noise as much, to continue doing the job that we've entrusted them to do.
Right.
Which is to tell the truth, to state the facts, to present the news in an accurate and a fair and in a timely basis.
If Bob Iger truly wields the corporate power he's famous for, could we see Kathleen Kennedy stepping down sooner rather than later? Fans have heard these rumors for years, but so far she's stayed firmly in place. Meanwhile, George Lucas has quietly expressed frustration with how his ideas have been discarded. He's known for tinkering with the original trilogy, but those were still his stories. Now, it's as if his signature universe has been hijacked for projects he never intended. If Disney wants to recapture the magic, they might need to invite Lucas's guidance back into the fold, even if it's a symbolic gesture. Because if there's one person who truly understands Star Wars, it's the man who created it. And that leads us to our concluding thoughts. In the wake of Gina Carano's legal triumph, the Star Wars universe sits at a crossroads unlike anything we've seen. Disney and Lucasfilm find themselves under a microscope, forced to answer for a series of decisions that have eroded fan loyalty and tarnished what was once the crown jewel of sci-fi entertainment. Kathleen Kennedy's leadership is in question, Bob Iger's frustrations are mounting, and fans' patience wears thinner by the day. So where does this leave us? On one hand, Carano's victory could be the catalyst that compels Disney to finally shake up Lucasfilm's leadership and philosophy, reverting to the original spirit that made Star Wars an enduring cultural phenomenon. On the other, there's a very real chance the franchise will continue down the path of aimless expansions and polarizing creative choices. If that happens, we might look back on this moment as a lost opportunity to set things right. The Star Wars community is loud and passionate because it cares. Millions of people grew up pretending to wield lightsabers and dreaming of intergalactic adventures. They want to see this universe continue to inspire hope and imagination, not serve as a battleground for corporate agendas. So, the next few moves by Disney are crucial. Will they double down on controversial projects or finally give fans a reason to believe again? Let's hear your thoughts. Is this truly the beginning of the end for the Star Wars brand we once knew? Or is it a wake-up call that'll bring us back to the timeless storytelling we've craved? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this deep dive. The galaxy may be in turmoil, but there's always a new chapter around the corner, and you won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and until next time, remember, hope might just be the strongest force in the galaxy.